Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later on the show, we'll take a look at the influence of Baron Von Imhoff. But first, we have a guest with us from the Williston Economic Development Director, Tom Rolfstad. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here.
Tom, as we get started today, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, I'm a native of Williston. My dad was an attorney, actually was the attorney for the Bakken family. And I went to NDSU, architecture and city planning. Been back in Williston doing economic development most of these years, but in the slow years from 85 to 90, I worked at State Economic Development Office. So I kind of got the state perspective, and I like it more at the local level. It's a lot funner.
Okay. Now, how did you become the Economic Development Director for Williston?
Well, started out as a summer intern helping to develop an industrial park, and next thing you knew, it was my career. So I guess that's what happened.
Well, when did you get started? How long have you been there?
Late 70s.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, things sort of continue to be great in your part of the state, I guess, depending on what perspective you look at and how you feel about it. But can you update the folks on sort of the oil boom that's going on out there? How many rigs are operating and
Sure.
what all is happening?
Well, it's growing. It's getting to be a bigger thing all the time. We've added almost 60 rigs just in the last 6 months. And a rig can be somewhere around 60 to 80 employees per rig. So you can kind of see the labor demands that it's put on all of North Dakota, really, to find the people for this. So we're at about 160 rigs drilling today, and all indications that's just going to keep growing. There's a lot of wells to drill. The difference today compared to the 80s is we had a lot of bad wells, or we missed. Today we don't miss. It's kind of like in the 80s we were trying to find these two cups. Today it's the whole tabletop. There's oil from stem to stern. So the success ratios are virtually 100%.
Well, with that, I think you said 160 roughly out in that area, right. 60 in the last few months. Is it going to continue to grow, or is it sort of going to plateau off?
Well, no one knows, but everyone right now today is saying it's going to go up at least another 50 rigs. So.
Okay. Well, we got a lot to talk about, so we'll just start this way. What about the passage of Measure 1 in the state, of course, the Oil Legacy Fund?
Sure.
Is this a positive thing for North Dakota or not, in your opinion?
Well, I think it is. You know, we have a great surplus right now, and a lot of it is from the benefit of the oil activity. And we've had trust funds in the past, but they weren't permanent. They were called permanent, but they weren't. And so the idea of this is to lock that money away, and I think it's till 2017, and then we'll use the interest off that money going forward. And it's a substantial amount of money. It could almost fund the school systems with that money. So I think the only trepidation people had was whether or not we had more needs now than the revenues were. But I'm pretty optimistic on the oil. I think the revenues we're getting now, we might see them grow even more. Just because of the level of activity we're going to continue to see.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about what is the population of Williston, say, right now, and what was it sort of before the boom? You're talking about, you said 60 to 80 employees per rig, so I mean, what's happening?
Well, we were at, it's hard to tell what the official census will come up with, because a lot of people are there that don't declare that their home. So, we were 12.5 in the 2000 census, and just talked to an engineer who said based on our sewage treatment, we're 17,000 right now. So, and we're fully expecting that we're going to be 25,000, probably sooner more than later, 3 to 5 years, something like that.
Well, that's got to bring its own challenges. So what about the housing situation right now?
Well, it's tough. We've had a lot of people living in RVs and whatnot too. And that works pretty good, but come winter here, I think you're going to see a mass exodus of people from their RVs because they just aren't made for the winters we have. We thought we'd build about 500 homes this year, this spring, and we just ran some numbers. We're right around 1,200. Now that's hotels, that's apartments, that's mobile homes, the whole thing. But so we've made great headway. And I think we're postured next year, we might even double that number. So we've made great headway. At the same time, I can't get you a place to stay tonight or next month or maybe even next year. So
Yeah, we of course had to try to get some tower work done, and you find the same problem. But you know, you talk about oil rigs and oil field workers, and but what about, are they bringing families? What about enrollment in the schools?
Well, you know, we have two facets. Because of the high growth, there are a lot of men that are just coming out and working and going back to Fargo or Grand Forks or wherever they're from, Missoula or whatever. And so they might be out for 3 weeks, but they go back home to their families. As we get more and more single-family homes and apartments, that's when we start to see the families move in. And that's what we need to have, because it's the housewife and maybe the teenage kids that can help to be our workforce for all the other businesses in town, because everybody needs help.
Well, with that, what about the neighboring towns? Of course, you're all dealing with the same influx of workers, but sort of the change in infrastructure. Can you talk some about that? How's everybody dealing with it?
Everybody's feeling it. A lot of these small towns have already doubled. Some of them are even already tripled. And they're at the point where their sewage capacity is maxed out. Their ability to tax more to do it is maxed out. And so that's part of what I think we'll be looking at the legislature is, how do we solve those problems? I mean, because the town can't do it all by themselves. And yet we need people. We need to get them housed somehow. So, but it's just really spectacular to go out and see what's happening across western North Dakota, and virtually every town is just a story in itself. You know, fascinating.
Well, I'm sure it is, as I hear from different people, and we get a chance to talk to a lot of folks here at Prairie Public. But can you talk about how the impact's been on, obviously, the local businesses, whether it's restaurants, of course, hotels, you can talk about, and schools, et cetera?
It's tough. Kind of the thing that really hit us here, our McDonald's put in a second drive lane, and it's full. And I went there the other night, just before commission meeting, and I got there just before 7. I ordered from the counter, and I got through there fairly quickly. And so I was ready to leave a little bit after 7, and the door was locked. And I turned, and the guy came over and said, "I'll open it for you." So, well, why is it locked? He said, "Well, our 14 and 15-year-olds have to go home at 7 o'clock, so we're going to close the store tonight because we don't have enough workers to. We'll keep the drive-ups going, but." So that's the challenge you're in. So then we get word that we're the second highest volume sales McDonald's in the world. And I go, well, we'd be number 1 if we had the people so that we could stay open to serve all the customers. So, but that's indicative of the problem. And every mom and pop business is having the same struggle. Walmart needs 100 more workers. They're not getting inventory out on shelves. You have to really come out and see it to really understand it. But if you're coming, make sure you get a motel room before you come.
Well, or bring your own mode of whatever you're going to sleep in is what I've been told before. So I understand recently you and some Williston leaders paid a visit to Fargo, and I think maybe Fargo is coming to Williston. What's the purpose of that meeting?
Yeah, it really started with Grand Forks, and they came out, and then on a second trip they brought some of the Fargo City Commissioners along as well as the mayor of Grand Forks. And really been a good discourse, and we've learned a lot about what's going on in their communities, and they've learned more about us, so I think we're all in this together. And the other thing I think we were all amazed is how many businesses in those cities are out doing business out our way right now. I mean, this is not just a thing that affects Williston or is good for Williston. I was just at an interview last week with the president of O'Day Equipment in Fargo, and he said since this Bakken started up, their sales have tripled, making these big tanks for the oil field. His workforce has quadrupled. And he said, I got 2 more competitors here in town doing the same thing. Well, there's probably 500 manufacturing jobs in Fargo making tanks for the oil field. And so you go down the street, and I mean, we got architects and engineers and contractors and wholesale distribution people from throughout the whole state. So I really kind of encourage everyone in North Dakota to say, how could you help us? Because we need help. If you take the yellow pages, every business in there from A to Z, I need more of all of it. So if somebody can help us with that, come on down.
Well, maybe we get the word out here with some of this. We talk about the growing pains, obviously, because you're not, I guess, any city's not ready for that big jump.
Right.
Because you think you do it gradually with population growth and things. But I understand, the road situation, we hear people are avoiding certain roads now. And I mean, how are you dealing with this? And it's not just the roads. I mean, there's dust, there's other issues that go on. Can you talk about some of those?
Yeah, it's just tremendous, the traffic. Thank God that they four-laned Highway 2 from Minot over to Williston, because it's been the perfect thing there. And the state has, I think, stepped up and really tried to address this, but they've got a limited budget too, but DOT is putting on a lot of improvements out there, and they're not just a lot of traffic, but it's a lot of really heavy loads, and the heavy loads have a lot more impact. You can run 1,000 cars and you'll have more impact with one truck. So that's the challenge that we face. Schools, we're going to have to build schools, and I don't know how we're going to pay for it all. I don't know, but you got to educate these kids somehow. Mm-hmm. So they're good problems to have, and if it happens slowly over 20 years or something, you could just adapt to it. But trying to go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds is just a little stunning.
Well, okay, but with that, and you talk about some of the issues. But obviously we're about to start a new legislative session as it gets started here. What are you looking for out of the state legislature, out of the session? I guess concerning the oil boom and the infrastructure issues that you have in the part of the state.
The oil industry pays a pretty good tax, and about 11.5% of every barrel right off the top. That's before they pay their corporate taxes and all that later. So the state gets quite a bit of revenue there, and we have a pretty good surplus. So we can make a lot of money from this oil business to help the whole state. I kind of equate to what we need is kind of like priming a pump. You got to put a little water in to get a lot of water out, and that's somewhat our case. Most of what we need to do, I think we can do regular business plan, but because if you're going to build a water system or something, you're going to sell the water to somebody, and there's revenue. But the bonding companies are going to say, well, somebody needs to guarantee this, because what if all this goes away and these little towns just can't afford to pay it back? We're not even going to start that. So I think that's where the state might have to guarantee some of these loans. I think they're pretty good investment. I think this play is going to last for a very long time, and there'll be a lot of revenues from it.
Well, I'll probably talk a little bit more about that, but can you talk about how this oil boom has been recognized nationally and maybe some things that have happened in that regard?
Yeah, this shale play. Shale is a very dense rock. It's as dense as a tombstone rock, 75 to 100 feet thick, and it's just a pervasive layer. It lays in there more like coal than what you think of oil, really. So you're mining coal with a pipe is kind of a way of thinking it. And these new technologies that were invented out here are really what discovered the way to squeeze that blood out of a turnip, so to speak. And so it's a revolution, and there are other parts of the world that are starting to look at the same technology. But the Bakken is really the one that, cracked the nut and invented the solution, so to speak. We're the largest oil play in the lower 48. And I think we're going to just get bigger. We're a number 4 producer in the country. We were number 9. I think we're going to beat California. We'll be number 3 here probably in a couple more years. So it's, and every media has been out our way and done their stories, and so it's on the lips of a lot of people. It's probably more, Eric Severide said North Dakota was a blank spot on a nation's consciousness, and outside of Mount Rushmore, I think that people might now say, well, Bakken, isn't that in North Dakota? So maybe it's added a little identity for us.
Well, with that, when would you say that the oil boom this time started? Because obviously, it just seems to keep growing. So when did it start?
We had a play over in City, Montana area here, 5-6 years ago, and that was the first Bakken play that got going. And then really in North Dakota, it really got going maybe 3 years ago. So it's really a relatively new thing. And my guess is that we've got at least 20 to 30 years of drilling to approach the problem. And every couple of years, people come up with new techniques. And if we drilled the wells we drilled 3 years ago with the technology we have today, we'd get a lot more oil. And I think that's going to continue to happen.
Well, with that, and maybe you've already just answered that question, but what are the experts saying? How much oil is still in the ground under North Dakota?
Well, the USGS study on the Bakken said that we're, something under 4 billion barrels is the reserves. That's based on the technology of the day. Harold Hamm of Continental Resources said, well, I think it's really double that, particularly now that we have the Three Forks layer right below. So he's saying more like 8 billion. Just last week he said, I think I'm low on that. I think you better triple that number. So that'd put us at 24 billion. And I tend to, I have a lot of respect for Harold Hamm. He knows the Bakken as well as anyone, and he's been an amazing, part of this. So I think there's more here than meets the eye.
Well, with that said, and I mean, people are still conservative. Is there any concern, that the day's going to come that this boom does become a bust?
Well, I think everybody's concerned with that, and I think that's why we need to do as much as we can to. I guess what we say is, we just hope that when it's all over, we're a better town for it, and not something that looks like 3 days after Woodstock, So we're doing a lot of things to improve our quality of life. We're doing a lot of enhancements to the community, and a lot of private sector involvement that way. But we're going to have to diversify our economy too, and I think that's the case for the whole state. So that will be a challenge. I'm hopeful that this is going to be down the road quite a ways, and we'll have an opportunity to bring in some of those diverse industries along with this.
Okay. Can you talk about how your job as Economic Development Director has sort of changed? I mean, obviously I assume you're busier, but.
Yeah, we're very busy. Well, it used to be we were out trying to create jobs. Today we're out trying to find people, we're trying to find housing, we're trying to find solutions for all the jobs that we have. So it really has changed that, and actually the mayor called it our Build Williston program. So workforce attraction, housing development, and quality of life. And we've really put a lot of horses behind that, and I think we're making good headway with it. But every time we get caught up, it seems like they double the numbers on us again. So that's the challenge.
Well, and I know you talk about bringing a lot of workers, I guess, from out of state into the region. And does that sort of present some challenges, say, in terms of sort of integrating them with the locals, I guess?
To a degree. I would say the people that we tend to get are from the northern climates, just because they're used to the kind of weather we have. We got some great workers out of Kalispell and Missoula, have been in the lumber business, and the factories are closed. People from Michigan. Probably every town in county in North Dakota, there's people working in the west. And I would say generally, I think people have adapted pretty well. But you always hear something where somebody didn't get along or blame somebody. But so far, I don't think that's been, a big issue.
Okay. Environmentally, are safeguards being followed to ensure, sort of no damage to the landscape in North Dakota?
Yeah. North Dakota is, I think, probably one of the best, set of controls, the agencies that regulate the industry. They're pragmatic, but I think they're looking out for us.
People want more information, where can they go?
Well, I would suggest they go to www.willistonwire.com. It's an e-newsletter we send out, and it'll have a lot of information and kind of give people an update of what is happening.
Okay. Tom, thanks so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you. It's been a pleasure.
Stay tuned for more. Born into an aristocratic German family, Baron Friedrich von Imhoff fell in love with the prairie on a hunting trip. A classically trained painter, he turned prairie churches into works of art.
We have people come here from all over the world, and they can't figure out what this art is doing out here in the middle of nowhere. Did he donate pictures to churches in Saskatchewan? Definitely. A lot of churches he did for free of charge. My grandfather originally came from Germany. From Germany, he immigrated to Reading, Pennsylvania. From Reading, Pennsylvania, at his late 40s, he moved up here to St. Walburg, Saskatchewan. He came up here on a hunting trip with some people he knew, and there was inexpensive land up here at that time. So he bought land, and he liked the area, and he moved up here.
They moved in 1914. He hired other people to work his land and to break it because he wasn't a farmer. He was an artist, and that's all he did.
He decorated a lot of churches. He was trained in art schools in Halle and Dusseldorf in Germany. Most of his work was done in the States, in the Dakotas, and mostly around Pennsylvania. The list we have of all the churches he did was over 90. But obviously he did a lot more than that because there are some churches that he did that we haven't got lists of.
We were at the Imhof studio, the working gallery of my husband's grandfather, Baron Von Imhoff. He started all these paintings in charcoal first, and then he would put 3 coats of oil. And he also only painted by the north light because he also had to mix his own colors. He couldn't buy the colors that he used at that time. That's why all the windows in this studio are on the north side, and he could get the true colors that way.
When they would contact him to do a church, he had numerous amounts of small paintings. Like you see them all around the side over here. He'd take those with him, and they would pick out what they wanted in a church, and then he would paint it in life size. All the pictures that he did were done right in this building. And then they would take it down to the church and then put up. Unless it was a curved area, like over an altar or a curved dome or something, then the canvases were put up and they were painted right in the building, right there. Even though they lived up here in Saskatchewan, they would go back to the States and do projects. When they did the large church in Reading, Pennsylvania, they moved down there.
We're in the St. Peter the Apostle Roman Catholic Church. This is undoubtedly Berthold Imhoff's masterpiece. At the top of the ceiling here are 224 life-sized figures processing towards the altar. In the sanctuary, we see St. Paul preaching to the peoples of the East and St. Peter preaching to the peoples of the West. Berthold received a commission from St. Peter's Church to paint this procession of saints, and he did this at his studio in St. Walburg, Saskatchewan, and put the paintings on the train, and he and his son Carl came down here and installed the paintings in approximately the mid-1920s.
When he moved up here, yeah, he was well off. But everything he made in churches, he would put back in his canvases. He painted when he didn't have commissions. All the ones you see in here today, he just painted to paint. No sale for him. He never did sell a picture. He never painted a picture to sell. It was just churches that he was commissioned to do.
In the United States, he did very well. Everything he had, he paid for with the work of his artwork. Much of the work that he did in the churches in Saskatchewan, often they were donated. It was important to him that they had something that reminded them maybe of their homeland, because a lot of these were European people, and the churches were decorated beautifully there. And so he would give them a gift that way, a reminder of their homeland. And also even in worship, it was the art helped them because it drew them to thinking of things that were, say, removed from everyday life. A decoration from the Pope came in 1937. He was knighted with the knighthood of St. Gregory the Great. It was befitting that knighthood was bestowed on him because St. Gregory the Great was noted for his charity. He used his wealth to the good of everybody. When he died, he was not well off at all. He was in fact very poor, and so for helping with Mrs. Imhof, his wife, gave a painting to the undertaker because there was no money. He was a very spiritual person, and I wouldn't say so much religious as very faithful. He had a faith, and he had a goodness in him. I mean, he had to have given so much, not only in his artwork, but in other charity too. Like if somebody was hard up, he would help them out, and that was not known until after he died.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week. And as always, thanks for watching.